Shalom, shalom, Israel's brothers, Abiyallah coming back at you with another cold call. I'd like to give all honor and glory and praise to Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai. We got 25 days to Pentecost. Lord willing, we be consistent. Lord willing, we're making ourselves every day to be offered as first fruits unto the Most High. I let's hop straight into it. This is the three abominations of desolation in the scriptures. The three abominations of desolation. The first abomination of desolation would happen during the time of the Greeks. Let's prove that. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 8. All right, let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 8, and let's start up verse number 11. All right, this is Daniel, chapter 8, and verse number 11. And it says, Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Who is this talking about? It's talking about Antiochus IV. Right, he's the one that took away the daily sacrifice. He was that king in the Seleucid dynasty that wanted to unite his whole empire and take away the laws of the Jews. And it says, verse 12, and the host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Right. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint, which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? Now, this is during the time of the Greeks. Let's go to the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse number 54. All right, 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse number 54, and it says, now the 15th day of the month Caslu in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. And this is what the Greeks were doing during the time of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. They were setting up idols, to profaning the altar, profaning the damn altar with swine's flesh, right? Making it illegal for you to keep the Sabbath day. All right, so these things were happening during the time of the Greeks. This is the first abomination, desolation. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4. This is the book of 1 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse number 37. And it says, verse number 37, Upon this all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest chambers pulled down. Yet the altar, the sanctuary, it was looking beat up, looking like somebody hasn't inhabited that in a long time. It wasn't well taken care of because of the Greeks. And it says, verse 39, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their head. Verse 40, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried towards heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. And yeah, this is what's going on in the time of the Greeks, right? With Judas and his brethren having to fight them off during the Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemies in Egypt, having to fight off the so-called white man while they were profaning our altar and even torturing some of us. Let's go to the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 6. And let's start at verse 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse number 1. Let's see what they were doing. This 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 1. Let's get another example. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Judah Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in that place. They wanted their temple to be kind of rearranged around into their false gods. Verse 4, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. They brought in all types of unclean animals into our temple. They brought in harlots, right, doing prostitution, running all types of things in the temple, just utterly profaning the name and the image of the Most High. Verse number 5, the altar was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in that day, the king's birth every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. When the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. And guess what? They had to prepare. Our forefathers had to eat the damn sacrifices of the Greeks, the pork, swine's flesh, had to participate in wicked events for the king's birthday, Feast of Bacchus. So this is what was going on in the first desolation of abomination. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 9 and verse 24. Let's talk about it. The second abomination of desolation. So that was during the time of the Greeks. That was the first abomination of desolation. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 9 and verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, right? So there's 70 weeks that these certain things have to be accomplished, right? 7 things have to be accomplished to finish the transgression. That has to be accomplished within the 70 weeks. And to make an end of sins. That has to be accomplished within the 70 weeks. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. And to bring in everlasting righteousness. And to seal up the vision and prophecy. And to anoint the most holy. So 7 things have to be done in 70 weeks. Now, these are not literally 70 weeks. These are years. How do we know that? Let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 29. Right? Genesis chapter 29. And let's start at verse 27. So weeks, it just means a period of 7. So, but these weeks that's talking about in Daniel chapter 9 is actually going into years. How do we know that? Genesis 29 and 27. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. So 1 week is just a period of 7. In this context, 1 week means 7 years. It can be 7 days. It can be literally 7 days, right? It can be 7 years. It can be 7 months. It's just a period of 7. Now, when you're going back to it in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. So when you're doing a week, when you're doing 70 weeks, 70 times 7 is 490 years. So within that space of 490 years, these things have to be accomplished, right? Now, and it says, verse number 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment and to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again in the wall, even in troublous times. And within those 69 weeks, Israel was going to have a commandment to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild up the second temple. That was during the time of Ezra, during the time of Nehemiah, during the time of Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest that laid their hands to the foundation of the temple. Let's go to Ezra chapter 1 and verse 1. All right, let's go to Ezra chapter 1 and verse number 1 to prove that. This is the book of Ezra, chapter 1 and 1. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all the kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Now this is within the 69 weeks. Right, that the commandment went forth to go rebuild the second temple at Jerusalem. Right, this is the second. Let's go to 2 Ezra chapter 7. Actually, let's go back to that in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25. So now we know within that 69 weeks, the second temple was going to be built. Know therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince. So from that going forth of the commandment to rebuild Jerusalem until Yahushua came on the scene was what? Shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, right? That's this period of what? 69 weeks. That's 483 years, right? Around 483 years or so. Let's go to the book of 2 Ezra chapter 7, because that's even prophesied in the book of 2 Ezra that the Lord will come in within a space of around 400 years, right? Proving this prophecy to be true. This 2 Ezra chapter 7 and verse number 28. And it says, for my son Yahushua shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. So from the time of Ezra, Nehemiah, our forefathers rebuilding the second temple, when they got the commandments from Cyrus, and then again from Darius, that Yahushua coming on the scene was within the space of about 400 something odd years or so, right? And it says, verse 29, and after these years shall my son Christ die, and all men that have life. And after Yahushua died, that spirit filled the earth of righteousness with life coming from the word of the Lord. But the point is, when you go to the book of Daniel chapter 9, let's go back to that Daniel chapter 9. That's 69 weeks or 483 years. You can link that up with the book of Daniel, 2nd Ezra chapter 7. Right? It's Daniel chapter 9 and verse 26 again. 25 again. Know therefore, understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, right? 483 years. The street shall be built again in the wall, even in troublous times. Verse 26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, right? After 62 weeks, the Lord gave up the ghost, right? And the people of the prince thou shalt come destroy the city. So what happened after Yahushua gave up the ghost, right? After those 62 weeks, you had the people of the prince come into Jerusalem. Who's the people of the prince? General Vespasian and General Titus. From around 66 AD to 73 AD, you had Jerusalem being under siege, whereas 70 AD, Jerusalem was taken down. And it says, and the people of the prince that shall come destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood until the end of the war. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. Let's go to the book of Luke chapter 21. Right? Let's go to Luke chapter 21. And let's read about that. The city being destroyed. The sanctuary. Temple being taken down. This is Luke chapter 21. And let's start at verse number 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Right? The Romans, what they did was they compassed the army around. They used the army to compass the city round about. So they cut off access to food and water, right, from neighbors or sister cities. And it says, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, right? Talking about to Africa, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. Yeah, if you were in the country part, you couldn't enter into Jerusalem. If you were able to leave Judea, go into the mountains, which at that time geography, they were going into Africa, flee into Africa, right? And it says, verse 22, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive to all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And the times of the Gentiles have not been fulfilled yet. But this goes to show you how the second temple that was put there by our forefathers, right, during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah and Zerubbabel, was destroyed again by General Vespasian and General Titus. That's the people of the prince that came in like a flood. How do we know that? Let's go to the book of Psalms 144 and 7. In the scriptures, people are compared to like a wave, flood, a sea. Right? You even see, in football games and basketball games, the Edomites, they kind of take off their shirt, they paint themselves and they got different letters on, and they kind of doing all of this. They're making a wave, or rappers or singers or artists, they'll jump off the stage, and they'll the crowd kind of wave them around, right, until they get back to the stage. Right? Let's go to the book of Psalms chapter 144 and verse 7. Right? It says, send thy hand from above, rid me and deliver me out of great waters, from the hand of strange children. So strange children or nations are compared to as waters, compared to as waves. Let's get the book of Isaiah 57 and verse 20. It's the book of Isaiah chapter 57 and verse number 20. But the wicked are like the troubled sea. So even the wicked are like the sea, right? When it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. That's the second witness, where nations or even the wicked is compared to as a sea or a body of water, period. Let's go to the book of Luke chapter 21 and verse 20. Actually, we just read that. Let's go back to that in Daniel chapter 9. All right, let's go back to that in Daniel chapter 9. All right, this is the book of Daniel chapter 9, and let's start at verse 26 again. And after 3 years, after 60 In 2 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself and the people of the prince that shall come destroy the city and the sanctuary, right? The Romans. And the end thereof shall be with the flood, and to the end of the war desolations are determined. So that's the second abomination of desolation. We got the first abomination of desolation being with the Greeks, the second one being with the Romans. Now, what is the third abomination of desolation? Verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, right? That covenant being confirmed for 1 week. Esau made a covenant with the Israelites spiritually for 1 week. What is that week? We're actually in that week right now. We're approaching half that week if you have ears to hear, where we're out there, we're able to preach the words of the Lord, able to upload videos on YouTube. We're able to teach repentance to our people, teach that Black, Latinos, and Native Americans have to come back to their God as Israelites, teach against the so-called white man in these other nations and give them their judgment. That's the covenant that was set up where we can do that. Now, but what's going to happen? He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week, he shall cause that sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of the abominations, he shall make it desolate even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And guess what? What does Esau like to do? Esau breaks his covenant. So within the midst of that week, what do you have? You have about 3 or 3.5 days. We're in that third day, approaching that half day right now. We're approaching Jacob's trouble, and that's when the abomination, and that's when that within the midst of that week is going to get cut off by Esau. Let's actually prove that. Let's go to the book of Revelation chapter 12 and verse number 11. We're approaching the midst of that week. We're in the third day. There's Revelation chapter 12, and let me start at verse number 11. And after 3 days and a half, what's 3.5 days? 3.5 days is half of 7, or half of that week that Esau set up as a covenant. So within that 3.5 days, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life fell from God and entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. What do you see happening in the 3.5 days? Ezekiel 37, the dry bones are living. You have brothers and sisters coming back to this truth all over the world, through the internet, through social media, through seeing brothers on the highways and byways. That's what's going to happen within the 3.5 days. But that's right before Esau cuts that off, and then we go into Jacob's trouble. Let's go to the book of Hosea. Let's get the book of Hosea. Chapter 6. This is Hosea chapter 6 and 2. And after 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. So we're that third temple being built. We are that temple being built, right? That the altar is being built spiritually. We don't have a physical third temple. The elect, the children of Israel in these times are the temple of the Most High that's being built up within the midst of that week, or in the first part of the 3.5 days that we see happening right now. Right, let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 16 to show that we are the temple that's being built up. This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse number 16. Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? So the Spirit of God dwells in us. We're the temple to being built up in the name of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua within that first 3.5 days. Let's go to the book of Ephesians chapter 2. It's the book of Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse number 20. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets. So this temple was built upon the chief cornerstone, who being Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? Yahushua himself. Then the apostles, and then the prophets, right? And it says Yahushua Mashiach himself being the chief cornerstone, who started this ministry, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto a holy temple in the Lord. And everybody has a role in this thing. It's a building fitly framed together, starting with our fathers, man. Ultimately with Yahweh Shem Yahushua. So this temple is spiritual. But when Esau cuts off the building of this temple, when he stops the sacrifices, I mean, what are the sacrifices? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 9. We make sacrifices unto the Most High on this temple that's being built. It's Isaiah chapter 19, verse 19. And it says, in that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, which we're building right now. and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. So there's an altar that's being built in the listening man of Egypt. What Egypt is that talking about? Is that talking about the ancient Egypt? It's talking about this Egypt, America. Yeah, Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 10 on down to tell you that. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68 shows that this Egypt is America, and this temple and this altar is being built in the midst of Egypt, right under Esau's nose. Like you say, you got this truth going out everywhere. You got brothers and sisters repenting and coming back at a time that's never been seen before, man, with repentance. So let's go back to that in Daniel chapter 9. Right? Actually, let's go to book, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, right? 7 days. And in the midst of the week, 3.5 days, right, we're waking up, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And that's when Jacob's trouble kicks off. That's when Esau is going to start defiling this third temple, right? Let's go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 30. Right, that time is coming. It happened to the first two temples. It has to happen to the temple of God. Right, it's Jeremiah chapter 30. Let's start at verse number 6. Ask ye now and see whether a man doeth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned to paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And guess what? We're going to be saved out of Jacob's trouble, right, through the Spirit. But that still has to happen. That abomination, that third abomination, desolation to the children of Israel in these times has to happen. Let's go to Revelation 20 and 5. Let's see what they're going to be doing. It's Revelation chapter 20 and verse 5. And it says, verse 4, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they that lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. They're going to be beheading the Israelites. They're going to be torturing the Israelites. I mean, read the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 7. 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 30 with Eleazar. Revelation chapter 2 with Antipas. They did that to our fathers. They persecuted our forefathers. Paul got beheaded, man. Peter got crucified upside down. All right. A lot of these things happened to our fathers, man. So when they're defiling the third temple, these things will be happening to us as well, right? But I like to give all honor and glory and praise to Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahushua. Lord willing, you were edified about the 3 abominations, desolations. I like to bid a mighty strong shalom.